Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a stack of sources that, well, they don't just talk about wealth and success. They seem to lay out a pretty clear blueprint.
Yeah, like a set of principles. And some of them, honestly, feel a bit counterintuitive compared to what you usually hear.
That's what struck me too. It's fascinating how this material links very specific, kind of granular financial strategies with this bigger shift in mindset, in, how you act.
Exactly. It's really presented as less about just getting lucky and more about operating by a certain code, almost.
Okay, so our mission here for you listening is to kind of unpack that code. We're going to pull out the absolute core strategies and some surprising insights from these sources.
Giving you a shortcut, maybe, to understanding what this material argues it really takes, to build significant financial success and personal success, too.
Right. Let's dive in. So kicking things off, the absolute bedrock principle seems to be money is important.
Yes, full stop. But maybe not in the way people initially think. It's presented as a tool, something that has to be ordered, used deliberately, not just frittered away or, lost.
Okay, ordered. And used for what specifically?
Well, the core idea is using it to fuel growth, your own growth, your business's growth, hiring people, improving your team.
Promoting your vision.
Exactly. And critically, using it to connect with people who've maybe already achieved bigger things, people with bigger dreams.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's this key distinction they hammer home, right, about investing versus spending.
Huge distinction. Rich people, according to these sources, they invest money. They don't just spend it.
Seems simple, but maybe it's not.
Well, the insight they push is pretty profound. They actually argue that a bad investment, strategically speaking, is considered better than even a smart expense.
Whoa, hang on. A bad investment is better than a smart expense. How does that work? That sounds totally wrong.
It sounds backward, right. But here's the reasoning they give. An investment, any investment, hold the possibility of a future return.
Okay.
Or at the very least, it might offer tax advantages, like a deduction, simple spending. That gives you neither.
Ah, I see. So it's about the potential upside or mitigation.
Precisely. They use this analogy. Spending money on, say, a nice belt for yourself, that's just an expense. Money's gone.
Right.
But investing that same amount in creating, a product line of belts for your business, even if that product completely fails, it could still provide a tax deduction. You might recoup some cost, learn something valuable. It forces an owner's mindset, not just a consumer's.
Got it. So it positions you differently, even in failure. And this connects to the idea about the super rich, that they're not just about personal stuff.
Yeah, the sources emphasize that their focus shifts. It becomes about creating wealth for many people, not just themselves.
And the strategy is long-term appreciation of assets, not get-rich-quick schemes.
Exactly. It's framed as a much bigger game, building enduring value, which, interestingly, connects to another kind of striking idea they put forward.
Which is?
That money itself is sort of an illusion.
Okay, now you've really got my attention. Money is an illusion. What's behind that?
Well, the argument is that the scarcity isn't really in money itself. There's tons of it sloshing around the system.
Right.
The real scarcity, they say, lies in committed people, in creativity, in solid strategy. Money's just the medium. It's like a current.
A current. Like water.
Yeah, and like a current. It needs to flow. If it just sits there, stagnant,
Yeah.
well, its value erodes over time. Inflation eats it up.
Okay, a current that needs to move, or you lose. That flows right into the next big strategy, doesn't it? Leverage. This feels absolutely central.
Oh, it's critical. Leverage is fundamentally about control, not necessarily owning everything outright.
Control? How so?
It's about using your cash, which, let's face it, is always losing purchasing power, to control assets that are way bigger than your initial capital.
Okay, give me an example.
The source uses a pretty stark one, taking, say, $300 billion in cash.
Yeah.
And using that to control $1.2 billion worth of real estate.
Wow. So you're putting down, 25% in cash?
Something like that, yeah. And the real power isn't just controlling the asset, it's the cash flow it generates.
Right, the income from the property.
That $1.2 billion in assets, controlled that way, could spin off maybe $18 million a year. That's $1.5 million every single month.
Good grief.
And the sources define that kind of cash flow very simply, very powerfully. Cash flow is freedom.
Freedom.
It's the fuel you need to ride out economic bumps, contractions. It's essential.
And they're really specific about the types of assets that generate this freedom cash flow, aren't they?
Very specific. Concrete, steel, and glass. places where people actually live.
So residential real estate primarily.
That seems to be the strong implication. They explicitly contrast it with things like retail properties, which can be more volatile.
Yeah.
Assets meeting fundamental human needs.
Okay, that makes sense. Reliable demand. Now, woven into all this, the investing, the leverage is another strategy. One, the sources say the truly wealthy have mastered. Taxes.
Highest taxes, aggressively reducing them. Legally, of course.
This is where things can seem murky for people. Or maybe even unfair. What's the core principle here, according to this material?
The stated goal, presented as a legal path, is to get your federal and state income taxes on earned income down to zero.
Zero. Or even below zero.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
The main mechanism involves taking your earned income.
Like salary or business profits you pay yourself.
Exactly. Living modestly, especially at first, and then strategically investing that money. Particularly, they emphasize, in real estate.
Okay. How does real estate help you hit zero tax on earned income? What's the magic there?
It's not magic, it's depreciation. That's the key concept.
Depreciation. I've heard the term, but explain it in this context.
So think of depreciation as an accounting tool. The tax code acknowledges that physical things, like buildings, wear out over time, theoretically.
Even if the property value is actually going up.
Yes, even then. For tax purposes, the government lets owners deduct a portion of the building's cost each year as an expense against their income.
So it's a paper expense.
Essentially, yes, it's a non-cash expense. But it's a real deduction allowed by the tax code, specifically designed to encourage investment in these kinds of assets.
Okay. So how does that wipe out tax?
Well, if you invest and leverage smartly into a large enough real estate portfolio, that annual paper expense, the depreciation, can become huge, big enough to offset, reduce, or even completely eliminate your taxable earned income.
Wow. So let's use their example. They talk about $2 million earned.
Right. Maybe that becomes $1.6 million after you pay your agent, manager, whatever, typical costs.
Okay, $1.6 million net earned income.
Now, you take that $1.6 million, invest it, use leverage to maybe buy $4.8 million worth of real estate. That $4.8 million property, according to their math, could generate around $2.4 million in depreciation the first year.
Wait, so you earned $1.6 million, but you have a $2.4 million deduction.
That's the mechanism they illustrate. Your taxable earned income becomes negative, you pay zero tax on it, and that loss can often be carried forward to offset future income.
Incredible. So the goal is to live off the passive income from the properties instead.
Exactly. Passive income is typically taxed at lower rates than earned income. So you free up your earned income to reinvest, protected by depreciation.
And that's why you see some big names, like the Zuck example they use, taking like a $1 salary.
That's part of the strategy they point to. They get equity, options. Their wealth comes from assets, not salary. And they use these investment and depreciation structures to manage taxes legally.
And they show how this passive income grows too, right? That $1.6 million investment example.
Yeah, they sketch it out. Maybe it throws off $90K a year in passive cash flow initially, but with reinvestment and rent increases, maybe it doubles each year, potentially hitting $700K a year in passive income within, say, 8 years.
Plus, the property value itself is likely going up.
Exactly. It's a powerful illustration. Understanding the tax code, using it strategically with investments, it's fundamental. But you absolutely need professional advice. This isn't something you guess at.
Right. Definitely need accountants and lawyers who get this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the financial architecture. Order money, invest, don't spend, leverage for control, buy cash flowing assets, manage taxes via depreciation. But the sources are really clear. None of this actually happens without the right mindset and action.
Absolutely. Can't stress that enough. Learning is step one, but it has to translate into doing something, making a plan, executing.
And a huge part of that execution is commitment, total commitment.
Yeah. They argue you just can't spread yourself too thin. You can't dabble.
Right.
Pick one thing and go hard. Become excellent at it.
Like their example of focusing on real estate for 30 years versus jumping between crypto, stocks, this, that.
Exactly. Deep focus. And this leads to maybe one of the boldest ideas they present. Commit first. Figure the rest out later.
Commit first. Just jump in.
Fully immerse yourself. Find the right deal, the right project. The belief they put forward is that if the deal itself is solid, the money, the debt, the equity partners, it'll show up.
That takes guts.
It does. They talk about just writing the deal down on paper as being this crucial first step. Like it makes it real.
Yeah.
Based on doing thousands of deals, it's a real bias towards action.
It reminds me of the other point they make, like with creating content. Published is better than perfect, but unpublished.
Exactly the same principle.
Wow.
Action beats perfectionism every time.
Yeah,
Holding all this together.
Yeah.
Action, commitment, is this non-negotiable foundation. Assume full responsibility.
Okay, this one feels heavy. Assume responsibility for everything that happens to you, even things that seem totally outside your control.
It is heavy.
Yeah.
And challenging. But the way they frame it isn't about literally blaming yourself for, say, a hurricane.
Right.
It's about internalizing that your response, your actions, your preparation, those are always within your control. And they always contribute to the outcome, one way or another.
So owning your part, even if it feels small.
Yeah. They use some intense personal examples like getting robbed and saying, I caused that situation or I had something to do with it. Even something small like blaming the weather for messing up your recording. They'd frame that as taking responsibility. Should have checked the forecast, should have had a backup plan. It shifts the focus from external blame to internal agency. What can I do differently?
Everything that happens to you is because of you. That's the mindset?
That's the mindset they champion. It's presented as a hallmark of high performers. They operate from that place.
And things like keeping detailed records, like a sales log. That's part of it, too.
Totally. It's taking responsibility for tracking what you do and what results you get. Understanding what works, what doesn't. Being the cause, not the effect.
Handle the future by being responsible for the present.
Right. Like that gladiator analogy.
Yeah.
Learn from the last fight. Take responsibility for why you lost or won so you can survive the next one.
And this mindset, this responsibility, it naturally leads to being willing to take risks, doesn't it?
Seems to be a direct consequence. The sources are pretty blunt. Entrepreneurs take risks. Period.
And if you don't, if you're playing it super safe?
Well, the insight they offer is, if your priority is absolute safety, keeping all your money tucked away in savings, maybe retirement funds, investing very little in your own business,
Yeah.
then by their definition, you're acting like a saver. Or maybe an investor in other people's ventures, but not like an entrepreneur building your own thing.
They give that sharp example, the person with tons of equity in their house, cash in the bank, way more in retirement funds than in their actual business.
Yeah. To the sources, that's not the posture of someone taking the necessary calculated risks on their own vision. Risk is part of the deal.
Okay, calculated risk. Makes sense. Now, moving on to growth. Continuous growth. A huge piece of this is training and learning. Right?
Massive. Train every single day. Like
Well-
your life depends on it.
That sounds intense.
It is. They link a lack of daily training directly to a lack of obsession with winning. They use Conor McGregor as an example. That level of obsession requires constant preparation.
And the argument is basically, that's the only way.
The only way to win and stay ahead. Yeah. Especially now, things change so fast. You got to train, read, study, learn constantly. Listen more than you talk. Learn something new all the time.
And no excuses about age.
Absolutely not. If you say, I'm too old to learn, well, then you are. The source uses this phrase, like being ripe and about to fall off the tree.
Ouch. Vivid, though.
Yeah. And the core idea is investing time or money in improving yourself. That's the one investment you literally can't lose.
What kind of skills are they talking about?
Things like communication, debate, maybe programming now, understanding financial flows, algorithms, skills that actually help you make significant money in today's world.
Practical skills. And if you're learning from a master, someone successful.
The principle is duplicate first. Copy their methods exactly. Get the results they get consistently. Then you can start tweaking, modifying, innovating. Build on a proven foundation.
Right. Nail the basics before you get fancy. Which connects to the next point, adaptability, expansion.
Yeah, another core rule. Do not depend on just one thing. Not one income source, one product, one way of promoting yourself, not even one key person. You have to keep expanding.
And how do you know if you're too dependent? Is there a sign?
Resentment. That's the warning sign they get.
Resentment.
Yeah.
Huh?
If you find yourself resenting a client because they provide most of your income, or resenting, say, Facebook because your whole business relies on their algorithm, that resentment is a signal. It means you're too reliant. You need to diversify, expand your base. They share a personal story about resenting a big real estate client that was the wake-up call.
So building multiple streams, even small ones, over time.
Exactly. It builds resilience, avoids that dangerous dependency. They even suggest embracing geographic change, moving cities. Each move can bring new opportunities.
Constant movement, constant growth. Okay, now shifting gears slightly, the sources also talk about things that feel maybe softer, but framed as essential. Dreams, relationships, giving.
Yeah, absolutely essential drivers, according to this material. Highly successful people, they dream, They visualize their future vividly.
Like, actually spend time imagining it, writing it down.
Yes. Dedicate time to it. They use the example of London. Someone once just dreamed of a small village there. Never imagined the city it would become. Vision expands.
And it helps to be around other dreamers?
Crucial. Surround yourself with people who are also dreaming big. It fuels your own imagination, your own belief that it's possible.
And you have to protect those dreams, right? From naysayers.
Actively. The sources suggest that often when people try to talk you out of your big dreams, it's because they've given up on their own.
That's insightful.
They share personal stories, people telling them real estate was dumb, speaking on stage was a waste of time, building net worth was greedy. You have to push past that.
And it ties back to focus, doesn't it? What you focus on, you get.
Exactly. Your current reality, good or bad, is seen as a direct result of your past focus, what you reinforce daily. If you're focused on poverty, limitations, well, that's what manifests.
They use that sharp Bill Gates quote, too, about being born poor versus staying poor.
If you were born poor, it's not your fault. If you remain poor, it is your fault. It ties right back to taking responsibility.
Okay, so dreams are achievable if you take responsibility. And they link dreams to happiness, too.
Yeah, happiness isn't passive. It comes from having goals, having dreams, and actively working towards them. That's where fulfillment is found.
In the striving, the achieving.
Yeah, achieving things you're proud of, big or small. Organizing an event, nailing your work for the day, seeing your kids succeed. It's all driven by having an objective.
Got it. So dreams give direction, action gives happiness, and relationships. They help make it all happen.
Absolutely. Remember using money as a tool. One key use is connecting with people who have bigger dreams, who've already reached where you want to go.
Right, the mentors and collaborators.
Success requires contacts, relationships, connecting with the right people. People who are established but still want to do more with their resources, not just people who happen to have money.
Like that Bob Jet story anecdote, finding people eager to deploy capital, not just sit on it.
Exactly. Find the active players, especially in things like big real estate deals. It's a team sport. Relationships are everything for finding the deal, securing the debt, bringing in equity partners.
Makes sense. Now, this next one, giving. This feels really counterintuitive in a discussion about building wealth sometimes.
It does, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But the give, give, give attitude is presented as a major fundamental rule for success. Brings results you never imagined.
Why? What's the mechanism? Is it just karma?
They frame it partly energetically, partly pragmatically. Giving feels good. It actually provides energy. They ask, where does energy come from? And the answer points back to giving.
Interesting.
The principle is, the more you genuinely give money, sure, but also energy, love, a smile, service, knowledge, the more you will somehow receive.
And teaching others is a great way to learn yourself.
Specifically called out, it forces you to clarify your own understanding. And again, that counterintuitive point, if you focus too much on what you get.
You actually get less.
Yeah, that's the argument. They use the job candidate example. Someone asking about salary, benefits, office perks first, before even talking about what value they can bring. That's the wrong focus.
So give sincerely, authentically, even if people don't give back.
Yes, give without expecting direct reciprocity from that specific person. It's like the universe operates on this ebb and flow, give and receive like the tide. Make deposits in this spiritual bank account. It pays back, maybe indirectly.
And dedicating yourself to service, that can help you find your way if you're lost.
Yeah, they mentioned that explicitly, referencing spending years involved with NAA meetings, receiving help, yes, but crucially, also giving help to others. That service was key to staying on track.
And the challenge is, everyone has something to give, no matter what.
That's the core message. Don't focus on what you lack or what you want to get. Focus on what you can contribute. Even giving a homeless person a smile, they argue, makes you feel better, shifts your energy.
Like giving free presentations early on to build relationships. Lead with value.
Exactly. It's a fundamental shift away from scarcity. And just connecting back quickly, they strongly link this ability to give and grow with overcoming personal demons first.
Right. Stopping self-destructive habits. Drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. That's step 0, almost.
Non-negotiable first step. For self-esteem, for capability, sometimes requires a big change, like moving, going to rehab.
And replacing that destructive time with constructive time.
Yeah. Meetings, personal development, and again, helping others with the same struggles.
Yeah.
That reinforces your own progress.
There is also that interesting point about self-reliance, not becoming dependent on help long-term.
Right. Accept help when you need it to get back on your feet, but don't let it become a crutch. Relying on others too much can, they argue, make you feel entitled or less capable later.
Like refusing help during that TV show, needing to prove self-sufficiency.
Yeah, it ties right back to that radical self-responsibility theme again. Fierce independence.
Okay, so wrapping up. Let's look at dealing with setbacks, persistence, handling rejection.
Key idea here. No is rarely final. It's often just not right now.
So reframe no as maybe.
Kinda, yeah. And understand that persistence can eventually turn that no into a yes. They use the personal story pursuing his wife despite rejection. Same principle applies in business, in sales. Keep going until things change.
But you need to know the real objection first, right?
Crucial. People often don't state their true reason for saying no initially. The dating example, maybe it wasn't you're too short. Maybe it was something else entirely. You got to dig to find out what's really stopping the deal.
And then just persist.
Keep following up, keep working it until you get the outcome you decided on. And that leads to another powerful idea they mentioned.
Which is?
It only takes you to decide the outcome. You have to decide internally they are going to buy or we are going to do this deal before it actually happens.
Wow, so your internal conviction drives the persistence.
That's how it's presented. Your belief fuels the relentless action needed.
Okay. And briefly, they touched on negotiation too, especially big deals.
Yeah, an interesting insight. Large negotiations are often lost because of honor or ego, not just money.
People need to feel like they won.
Exactly. They need to feel good about the transaction, not just financially okay, especially if you want to do future deals with them. The advice. Sometimes it's worth paying a little more just to ensure the other party feels respected, feels like they got a fair shake.
Build goodwill for the future, and always find the underlying motivation.
Always. Ask directly if you need to. Aside from the money, what is your real need here? Uncovering that deeper driver lets you craft a solution that works beyond just the price.
Got it. Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here, this blueprint. It's comprehensive. You've got the hard financial mechanics, the investing, leverage, tax strategies like depreciation.
Right, the how-to of structuring things.
And then you've got the absolutely vital internal engine. The mindset, that radical responsibility, the commitment, risk-taking, constant learning.
The who you need to be part.
And then these essential external actions. Dreaming big, building the right relationships, leading with giving and service.
And the persistence to see it through, overcoming obstacles.
It really paints a picture of success built on all these interconnected principles. External action powered by internal mindset, financial strategy creating capacity.
Yeah, it all seems to work together in their framework.
And thinking back to that point we started with about the super rich focusing on creating wealth for many, this blueprint clearly outlines a path for individual success, no doubt. But those principles, leverage, control, creating value, they hint at something potentially bigger, don't they?
They really do. These strategies are presented as incredibly powerful tools for achieving personal freedom, controlling significant assets, which leads to maybe a final thought, something that goes beyond just the individual. Well, what happens when you take these same potent principles, the responsibility, the commitment, the leverage, the growth, that give approach, and you apply them not just for your own gain, but with the explicit primary goal of creating wealth and opportunity for many others?
So taking the blueprint and scaling the purpose.
Exactly. How does your ambition, your focus shift when the dream isn't just personal luxury or freedom, but using that power, that leverage you've built to actively enable and uplift others?
It's like applying the give principle on a massive systemic scale.
Yeah. What could you, the listener, build if your ultimate focus expanded? If it wasn't just about getting yours, but using these very principles to create wealth and opportunity for many, many people. Maybe like those examples of large companies creating jobs and value that were mentioned in the source.
It challenges you to think. Maybe the highest use of building this kind of wealth and capability isn't just personal freedom, but the impact you can then have far beyond yourself. Something to think about.